Oh my gosh, did you hear this salacious new rumor? Getting close. Apparently, DreamcastGuy hates the Xbox. This is a thing I hear a lot, like, especially over the course of the last 5 years. Perhaps 10,000 different comments have accused me of being a Microsoft hater or wanting Xbox to somehow fail. And I want to address that directly for the first time. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Now, let me be clear. Part of the strangeness of life as a YouTuber is that I've been uploading videos pretty much every day for the last decade. I know a lot of you guys have actually just subscribed in the last, year or two. Yes, it's nice that I'm getting millions of views and thousands of likes and stuff like that. But what's strange is that I've been doing this to some degree for over a decade. So there is a lot of old videos of me saying some very dumb stuff, talking about how I thought that the Xbox One was a big old piece of plastic that needed to get thrown out of a truck and stuff like that. I want to be clear about the fact that I've definitely softened a lot of my opinions on Microsoft over the course of the last 2 years, and a heavy part of this is the Xbox Series X. I will say this very clearly and very honestly. I did not care about the Xbox One. I actually legitimately thought the Xbox One kind of sucked. It wasn't that it was underpowered or had any bad technical glitches. I just didn't care about the exclusives. Like a lot of games like Rise, Son of Rome. Who cares? I thought Crackdown 3 completely sucked. The couple games it got that completely blew my mind were stuff like the Gears of War games. Every single Gears of War game, in my opinion, is a freaking banger. Even Gears 5, some people seem to be more mixed on Gears 5. That game's still so freaking gorgeous. I think a lot of these accusations originally popped up because I have really enjoyed a lot of Sony games. Last generation, I really loved the PlayStation 4. It's kind of even weird to think about this, but the PlayStation 4 is one of my favorite consoles of all time. I own like 700 games for it, which is completely staggering to think about. And a lot of times during the course of doing all these reviews, I review a lot of games. I beat a lot of games. And something about the process of reviewing games, it makes me appreciate universes more. It's a question I get a lot, which is people saying, is video game reviewing hard? Does it burn you out? Does all those hours just doing side quests and finishing last bosses, does it ever just boil your brain? No. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like it makes me grow a bigger appreciation for the art that's being created. And a lot of the Sony worlds I played in last console generation, I'll admit it, they impressed me a lot. I was very, very enamored with the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. I was completely blown away by the Ratchet and Clank remake, and then of course things like now we're getting all these PlayStation 5 games. I'm a complete Spider-Man obsessed dude, so I've really appreciated Spider-Man and now Spider-Man Miles Morales. I feel like what's starting to soften me up the most, if I could just be self-reflective here for a bit, I do think that Xbox Game Pass has perhaps been the biggest gateway drug to opening my eyes to the greatness of Xbox. I mean, yes, years and years ago I made stupid videos called like, I hate the Xbox and stuff like that. These videos are not only dumb, they do not reflect my current opinions. I hate when people take clips of those videos and be like, here's why Dreamcast wants the Xbox to fail. I don't want that. Healthy competition is fantastic. And I'll be clear, I actually think a lot of this purchasing stuff that's happening right now, I feel like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are better than they've ever been. Like straight up, I think that this is the golden era of video games. We're getting more exclusives, more cross-gen craziness, more DLC expansions that are practically the size of a new game. Like, I'm really impressed by the fact that so many developers are managing to improve this craftsmanship so much. And a lot of that comes from the fact that when I'm playing Xbox Game Pass, it's cool to me that there is so much variety. There's so much different styles of taste. When I bought my Xbox Series X, the first time I plugged it in and I saw the fact that it had original Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, Xbox One games that are being pumped up in frame rates and have higher resolution, and now the Xbox Series X games, it really began to feel like the future I wanted. Like, when I was growing up, even as a little kid, I really appreciated retro games, or I guess current games at the time, but I would not immediately move to the next generation. Like, A lot of times, once the Nintendo 64 came out, it felt like everybody just threw their Super Nintendo in the garbage can. But I didn't do that. I was still playing original Nintendo games and Super Nintendo games when the PlayStation 1 is out. I was still playing PlayStation 2 games when the PlayStation 4 was out, and etc. And I feel like Microsoft understands the importance of backwards compatibility and respecting classic fans. That's the kind of stuff that's the most interesting to me. So, as we go forward into this next generation, I really want to try and just review everything as much as possible. Even in this last 16 months, I've definitely been getting won over by these Xbox exclusives. Like, I feel like people sort of forget this. I gave a very high review score to Halo Infinite. I do wish that Halo Infinite would get some freaking updates and patches because I've quit the game long ago, but the initial experience of that was incredibly positive. I'm excited for freaking Hellblade's Senua's Saga. Looks like a freaking art form in freaking motion. Excuse me saying freaking so much. There's so many different styles of games that are coming out now, and I really sort of respect the fact that it feels like everybody is trying to stay in their lane while starting to branch out. Like, it's cool to think about the fact that for a long time, Sony's main focus was amazing single-player experiences. God of War, Last of Us. Now, the original Last of Us is still one of my favorite zombie games of all time, which is a big selection because there's like a million zombie games. Stuff like Nintendo trying to crank out different styles of, this weird Kirby that now eats cars and stuff. But Xbox, I've always kind of liked the fact that Xbox tries to do these online experiences, and they've finally gotten it extremely right. Even if you're not playing Sea of Thieves anymore, Sea of Thieves was an important benchmark. It was a world that was big, it was living, it was breathing, but it was all about the social community. If you haven't played Sea of Thieves, it's kind of strange that this game doesn't have any sense of typical progression. You're not grinding zombies to level up your weapons and stuff like that. It is very much more about the social evolution, figuring out how to customize your boat and sail around and making your own stories inside of their high seas adventure. I like the fact that everybody is sort of doing their own thing, but I want to try and be much more open to what Microsoft is doing. Instead of talking about which companies are going to win or which companies are going to lose, I kind of want to look at this more as the tapestry it's trying to be. I have a good friend that paints a lot of mosaics, which, are those big, huge paintings that go across like 50-foot canvases and stuff like that. And while he's doing them, he talks about the fact that you have to focus on the individual details, those little tiny etches and shadows, making sure a reflection is properly reflected. And he says that it's about seeing the tiny and realizing the big, seeing the micro, knowing how it affects the macro. I want to try and do that even more with this generation of consoles. I want to try and look at individual games, individual influence, individual stories to the best of my ability. Whenever I see people saying that I hate Xbox just because I absolutely thought games like Crossfire X, which just came out, that game is a trash fire. And then I loved Sifu, which is on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC. Somehow people start to conflate these very different genres of game, things that are made with very different budgets and styles and passion, and saying PlayStation versus Xbox, PlayStation wins. But that's not what this is at all. This is a much more complicated story. I want to see everything that video games have to offer. And right now, I think that the Xbox Series X is perhaps the most exciting system to me. I like my PlayStation 5 a lot. I'm perhaps more excited for PlayStation 5 exclusives as they currently exist. But the fact that every future game I'm going to play on Xbox, it's interesting that I'm not going to buy Microsoft games. I'm just going to use Game Pass to play everything from Starfield to Elder Scrolls 6 to whatever the next Doom game is. It's interesting time. I want to see how this all develops, and I'm going to try and talk less about console war stuff other than when I'm just sort of reacting to big stories. I want to see how this just actually unfolds. But if there is a particularly bad dumpster fire, I gotta roast it. Just try and be open-minded. Look at each of my reviews as its own thing. I'm talking about that game, not the studio, not the company, not some angry comment you read on Reddit. A lot of times I just want to talk about each of these experiences as they currently exist. And let's see how this console generation develops. Right now, I don't think that there can be any talks of winners or losers. Things are still heating up. I'm still thinking that if the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Nintendo Switch Pro comes out, there's going to be a lot more competition. If there someday ends up being a PlayStation 5 Pro or an Xbox Series XXX, like, I'm more interested in the probability. The future right now is looking to be very, very bright and very, very confusing, and I'm very ready for it. But that requires an open mind. If you're going to be in my comment section talking about the Trash Box 1 or the Lame Station 5, like, shh, touch grass. All right, these are just my off-the-cuff thoughts. I just wanted to talk about it because, honestly, I'm about to spend the weekend hanging out with my girlfriend because it's Valentine's Day. If you have a special partner, be sure to give a little, okay, cool. Love you guys very much. Have a good weekend. Enjoy stuff, and let the sun touch your delicate face. Have a good day. Like this video, and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.